Hello, one all. It's my view of My Hero Academia, chapter 326. Who are you, really? And we finally got it. All Might meets Stain. All Might meets the freaking hero killer himself. Though it definitely did not go how I was expecting. I mean, I think we'd either get, Stain trying to murder All Might for failing to live up to the ideals, for failing to be the symbol of peace, or we'd get Stain saving All Might from some big bad villain who's after him at the orders of All for One. Instead, we got Stain saving All Might from himself and giving him a pep talk. I love it. I freaking love it. And I think my favorite part is when Stain first shows up and starts threatening All Might for, bad-mouthing All Might. All Might's like, oh, okay, listen up. There's this whole big thing. I'm actually All Might. This is my real form. I shrink when I get exhausted, and there's this whole big battle against All for One. And look, I'll even change my family. I'll turn into, big old All Might like he used to be. And then he does, and he coughs up blood, which, of course he does. Freaking course he does. But as it turns out, Stain wasn't really being quite so literal. He didn't mean you're not the person who used to be All Might. He's saying you're not acting like how All Might did, how All Might should. You're not acting like a symbol of peace right now, and you're just being, so pathetic, so lame. You're just, literally falling to the ground here, feeling utterly helpless, and that's not what All Might would do in this situation. And this flashback we get of All Might is actually rather interesting as he discusses the madness of the old era that kept taking people away. And I do think this does better contextualize exactly the world, the mindset All Might had when he decided to become the symbol of peace. Because, now from the future perspective, realize, oh, All Might, that's insane. You're basically putting the entire world on your shoulders. That's stupid. That's obviously going to fail. But for him back then, when everything was, way more chaotic, when villainy was a much bigger concern than it is now, that seemed like a great idea. It seemed like a way of making the people feel safe and secure and happy, and actually did make an era of peace. It actually did make things better than they were during his childhood. And secondly, though, just the way he ran into the debris, the way he ran into the rubble, trying to help people, that's just such a flashback to, chapter 1 of the series, when Deku ran in to save Bako. Even though he's defenseless, even though he's helpless, he still felt spurred action. He still ran in and tried to protect the people. Oh, I love you, All Might. I freaking love you. And then as All Might just keeps, wallowing in self-pity, Stain goes after him with a blade, and All Might doesn't really seem like he's planning on fighting back all that hard. I mean, he seems like a little bit surprised, but not really upset all that much. Almost like, this is his own suicide. He's accepting death. He's like, all right, hero killer. You want to do it? Take me. I'm not a hero anymore. I can't do anything more. Just let me end. Just let this suffering end already. Which is honestly such an overwhelmingly dark moment. But as it turns out, Stain wasn't actually planning on killing him, and just wanted him to watch, just wanted him to witness this woman who comes to the statue every single day, who cleans it up, who takes off the sign saying, I am not here. And this woman, she could have been anyone. All Might has been a hero, been, All Might for, 30, 40 years at this point? And in that time, he saved so very many people, so very many times. But this woman, she is the very last person All Might saved. She was there under the rubble when he refused to back down, when he refused to stop fighting against All for One, when he refused to move away from that spot. He just kept protecting her time and time again, and I love it. I freaking love it. I mean, I think we can all agree, or most of us can agree, All Might's final stand, All Might's battle against All for One is basically the high point of the series. I mean, there have been some incredible moments since. I absolutely love the whole Dobby reveal. I loved how they executed that, but I honestly can't say any of those moments really topped All Might's last stand. I even saw a list a little while back of anime viewers who said that, All Might's stand, All Might's battle against All for One is the best episode of the anime, so her being here in just All Might's greatest moment, what the fan base considers to be All Might's greatest moment, his last moment, is just such an utterly perfect. It's also symbolic because, that was All Might when he was basically at his weakest, when he was, a hair's breadth away from death, and yet he still kept fighting, even with his body injured, his body broken so badly. He fought to save that one woman, and, now that he's just a little bit weaker than he was then, now that he feels more broken, he's not fighting back at all. He's basically given up. Like I said before, I'm fairly certain he actually, was willing to let Stain go in and kill him. I mean, he says he didn't feel any bloodlust from Stain, but still, he came at him with a knife, a sword, and All Might did not look all that surprised, all that worried at all. Very unnerving. And Stain is basically forced to remind him by screaming into his face rather loudly. I'm actually surprised the girl didn't hear it. That, even before he had a quirk, even before he had powers, he always stood up. He always protected the weak. He always ran headfirst in danger. He did whatever he could for the sake of the people. And now he's just, giving up. Now he's not even trying because he feels like there's nothing he can do. But there's so much he can do. He can continue to nurture those embers, continue to nurture those heroes who he trained, those heroes who he prepared, those heroes who he inspired. I mean, let's not forget Shoto, Bakugo, Deku. They were all inspired by All Might. They all chose to become heroes because of All Might. He's the one who, first lit those embers in them, first lit the embers of heroism in them, and now he needs to nurture them. Now he needs to protect them. Now he needs to do everything in his power to make sure they can stand strong, that they can become the heroes who will save the next generation. They will all become the pillars of peace who will save the entire world. Or at least all of Japan. And then just this line, oh my freaking god, this line. It literally made me cry. It actually made All Might cry too. I'm doing my best. You too, okay? She's cheering him on. She's saying, All Might, you just keep trying. You keep doing your best too. Even though she doesn't actually realize, the symbol of peace is standing about 100 feet behind her. Oh god, I actually kind of wish he'd walked up to her and said thank you and, given her a great big hug. That would have been just such an utterly perfect moment. But anyway, though, then before Stain walks away, he leaves behind a little gift. Information that he acquired from his time in Tartarus, which, interesting, very, very interesting. I mean, what did he acquire in his time in Tartarus? Some sort of information about the villains? I mean, I can't really imagine he spent all that much time with All For One. Though that definitely would be a very interesting conversation I would freaking love to see. What did he acquire? What did he learn while he was in there? Who did he talk to? I mean, from what we saw, he was, basically confined to his cell, basically, strapped to the wall like this the entire time. So was he just, yelling at the other prisoners across the hallway? Could he hear what they were saying, hear their conversations? What sort of information did he manage to acquire, and how is he going to help them? How is he going to lead them to finding a way to stop All For One? I'm curious. I'm very, very curious about that. Though whatever the information is, it feels like it's going to be the first step towards making things right, fixing things, because in the very last panel, it stops raining, or at least the rain starts letting up, meaning that we're almost out of the dark times, meaning it's almost the time for the counterattack, time for the heroes to stand up, stand strong, and basically find a way to defeat All For One, find a way to take back Japan from the villains. Oh, that's going to be fun. That's going to be so very, very much fun to watch. And let's not also forget, I mean, this hasn't been brought up in a while, but foreign heroes are coming to Japan. Heroes from all around the world are going to show up in Japan at some point in the next couple days, couple weeks, and lend a helping hand, find a way to, basically turn the tides against the villains as well. So yeah, I'm definitely curious what these foreign heroes can be like and what they're going to add to the fighting power of Japan's hero society. I mean, a big theory I've had since they were first announced was the foreign heroes are going to include Captain Celebrity from the Vigilante spin-off, and maybe his sidekick, the Crawler? I mean, that's a fairly insane theory, but the timeline would kind of sort of make sense. And, based on where Vigilantes is right now, I don't really think Koichi can stay in Japan or, find work in Japan. So very, very curious about that. Also, just kind of curious, what's the deal with Stain now? Because, he said, then come for life of Stain, the man who murdered 40 heroes, all for the sake of fixing hero society. I mean, it makes it sound like, once the villains, once the League of Villains, once All For One are all finished and taken care of, then Deku's going to go up against, Hero Killer Stain. He's going to arrest him, take him down, bring him to justice, for the sake of also fixing society. So is he just done now until then, or are we going to see him again? Is he going to show up and, help them stop the other villains, help them stop the escaped prisoners, help them stop All For One? I mean, I feel like that would also be for the sake of fixing the society, fixing a very, very broken society. Obviously more broken now than it was, before the prisoners escaped, but still, in both scenarios, they were very, very broken societies that needed someone to fix them. And Stain was, the person willing to get his hands dirty to make things better in his own way. Or at least he did what he thought would make things better. I mean, crime did go down every neighborhood where he killed a hero, so yay, kinda? I mean, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure exactly where to categorize Stain. His heart is in the right place. His heart is definitely in the right place, at least. But please leave all down below. What exactly was on the paper Stain gave to All Might? What exactly is he going to do with it? Is this the last we saw of Stain until, basically epilogue of the series? And is this the last we'll see of Statue Girl? Because, I'm not really sure how much she can contribute, but they went out of their way to show her quirk. She can turn her feet into mochi balls, snowballs, something like that. So very, very curious about that. I mean, that could be ice. She could be making it. I saw some people online joking that, oh, she's a third cousin once removed of Shoto. She's Endeavor's, long, long lost grandniece, stuff like that. That'd be interesting. Definitely interesting, but seems so very, very unnecessary right now. Oh, also, speaking of snow and ice, Shoto just kind of left these giant blocks of ice behind after he left, after, he brought Deku back to UA. I feel like that's going to cause some flooding. I mean, that is a lot of ice, and I feel like that could just, cause a whole... I mean, for one thing, it's heavy. If that's a whole other thing, it's really, really heavy. It should be causing some serious damage to the ground all around it. But for another, once it melts, once it starts to... It can flood the area and cause some serious damage here, especially when this area is more or less abandoned. There's no one here to look after it, no one there to, deal with the flood damage. I'm just saying, Shoto's quirk comes with a lot of downside for the people around him. I'm curious about that. I know, utterly ridiculous thing to worry about, but I don't know. I was curious about that. But anyway, let me know all down below. Be sure to like and subscribe to the video. Until then, peace.